for studying purposes. So I don't want to take storage on my phone. So of course I would do it through YouTube and then just post it. Okay, so today we are now on Unit 2, Part 1, Neuroscience, Genetics, and Behavior. You might be on a different schedule, so maybe this can help you later on in the year, or maybe you already did this. I don't know. But it should be able to help you with the end of the year test. Cause I try to explain it like I'm explaining it to somebody that is lame or whatever. Okay. So behavior genetics is the study. Oh, why do I keep on saying that? Behavior genetics studies the power of limits of genetic environment info. Okay, studies environment info. So yeah, chromosomes are thread-like structures made of DNA molecules that contains DNA. They have a long line of DNA molecules, genes go into DNA goes into chromosomes. They all make up the same thing. To get in the bigger picture, which is us. DNA contains the genetic information that makes up the chromosome. Like I said, genes to DNA, DNA to chromosome, chromosome to cells. There you go. What did he say? I don't know. Maybe him. I don't know. But yeah, so DNA contains the genetic info that makes up the chromosome. So and then chromosomes has DNA molecules inside of them. So a whole bunch of DNA molecules makes up one chromosome. Genes are small segments of the giant DNA. So we have a whole bunch of genes make up a chromosome. A whole bunch of those chromosomes that are made up of genes makes up a chromosome. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so a whole bunch of genes makes up a chromosome, and all of those chromosomes combined together. Do I keep on saying it wrong? I'm gonna explain it a little bit slower. So all of those little particles of genes make up DNA. All of those little particles of DNA make up a chromosome. Okay. Um, recessive. We have recessive and dominant. Don't know if you remember from biology, but they have different little recessive, dominant, the traits that you have, your eyes, eye color, that's a trait. We'll go into that later. But we have the recessive gene carries info in the DNA, but it's hidden, not visible. Let's say you have black and white parents. Um, the parent, your white parent has blue eyes, black parent has green eyes. That blue eye could be the recessive trait, so it will not show. It's the recessive gene. It does not become a trait unless both copies, mom and dad, of the gene are present. So we can say maybe the mom has an underlying recessive trait of blue. Then that child could more likely have blue eyes. Dominant gene is a genetic trait that is expressed. It becomes a trait even if just one copy is present. So let's say that blue eyes was the dominant gene and the mom, you know, then that would be the dominant gene and it would be expressed. Genotype is a set of genes in the DNA responsible for a characteristic. So genotype is characteristics, and we have phenotype is the physical expression of a trait, the way it looks. So, um, like I said, um, the phenotype would be um, the blue eyes. They have blue eyes. You can see the blue eyes. And then the genotype will be the chromosomes, genes, DNA behind that make up those blue eyes. So that is that. Um, Genome is the complete instruction guide for making an organism. It's, pretty self-explanatory. Heritability is proportion of variation among individuals in a group that we attribute to genes. Remember, genes is the smallest form of a chromosome. Genes to DNA, DNA to chromosomes. When heritability is low, environment of the variability is high. Differences by environment. When environment variability is high, heritability is low. Oh, so sorry. probably wrote that wrong, so y'all don't quote me on that. Probably wasn't listening in class. That means you need to listen when you're in class. Hey, everybody. Um, Types of twins. You have D. D is two, right? And then we have mono. Mono is one. Dis, Disgarter. Oh, Jesus, I don't know that word. Fraternal. That means um, fr- die, die. Okay, hold on. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I was right there. So die, one um, D two. Fraternal, two different. They're two different, but they are twins. Mono one, they can be taken on those as one person, but their characteristics are different. Um, they're identical twins if they're monozygotic twins. That means they're identical, but the scientific term for that will be monozygotic, and then fraternal will be dizygotic. Um, Twin studies controls for greater appreciation. Personality and intelligence is highly heritable, meaning that differences are associated with genetic variation. Identical twins are more alike than fraternal twins, even if raised apart. So, personality and intelligence is highly heritable. So, you guys can inherit that from each other at one same time, see the same time, everything. Meaning that differences are associated with genetic variation, not environment. So, wherever you live cannot change that you have blue eyes. You can be in a community of black people. Your eyes are still going to be blue. Um, and then that other person could be surrounded by black people. Won't change anything about them either. Um, Highly heritable are associated with genetic variation. Identical twins are more like the fraternal twins, even if raised apart. So, you know, adoption studies control for environment. Oh, Jesus. Big takeaway, people who grow up together, whether biologically related or not, do not much resemble in personality. Everybody has their own personality. That's why instead of listing your personality, I listed like the eye trait. I love eyes. Like, I really wish I had green eyes. It's really rough. But, that is, it's not something that you can like get from the environment that you're in. It's more of like, you know. But personality is something that always differs. You can look the same, and one of you love basketball and the other one hates basketball. So it's just different things like that. Personality traits like extroversion and agreeableness, something like that. And people who have been adopted are more similar to their biological parents than adopted parents. Molecular genetics studies molecular structure and function of genes. Molecular behavior genetics is the study of how the structure and function of genes interact with our environment to influence behavior. So let me go over those two terms again. Molecular genetics studies molecular structure and function of genes. So that studies the molecular structure and the molecular function of genes. Um, Molecular behavior genetics is the study of how the structure and function, which was studied by molecular genetics, um, of genes interact with our environment to influence behavior. So whatever the structure and the function is, how it interacts with our environment to influence behavior. Epige- Epigenetic studies of how nurture, which is experiences, affects and shapes behavior, our hereditary nature. In addition to genetics, epigenetics looks at environmental factors that can trigger or block genetic expression. Let's see. Evolutionary psychology focuses on what makes us so alike as humans. Charles Darwin, principle of natural selection and survival of fittest. Um, so we have Charles Darwin made survival of fittest, which was like it was kind of like a wrong principle. I would say that I would not agree with that principle, but it said whoever is stronger survives. So to explain why I said, Jesus, this is more like history. But to explain why I think that is wrong, is because if you look at it, um, that's like saying all the poor people must die and all the rich can live. Live happy, live free. And just every time you see poor people, boom, shoot me head, they're dead, they're gone. Survival of the fittest. That was not really a um, it's not really a good, principle, but it is a principle that still goes around. I think it was more used on like animals, like because of how they have, they talk about the brown rats in a let's say like a brown rat on a black stovetop and a black rat on a black stovetop. Who are you think not gonna get caught? Obviously the black rat. So the black survives longer. So that is how they do that. But like in other ways of how you look at it with like assimilation and all that, it's kind of different. The endocrine system, the body's slow communication system. So the endocrine responds very, very slow. A set of glands responsible for secreting hormones into the bloodstream. So the endocrine system secretes hormones into the bloodstream, not the system. Because I don't want to say the system and get you messed up. Anytime you hear secretion of hormones, and they be like, where does hormone secrete into? It does not secrete into anything else but the bloodstream. Pituitary gland is the master endocrine gland. It is responsible for growth. So that's like your height and stuff. So like yeah. Hormones are chemical messengers in the endocrine system that travel through the bloodstream. So like I said, all hormones travels through the bloodstream. Yeah. Central nervous system is the brain and spinal cord and only. The peripheral nervous system, it it is more than just two things. The peripheral, it goes down into like, let's say like eight other sections, kind of like in a way. Central nervous system is just brain and spinal cord. As long as you know that with the brain and spinal cord, central nervous system, you're completely fine. Central nervous system, brain, spinal cord. That's all you need to know for the central nervous system. Well, not all, but that is all that the central nervous system deals with. Brain, spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system is the rest of the body. Everything else, literally. Um, the autonomic, I think it's autonomic nervous system is sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. It is responsible for arousing the body, and the parasympathetic nervous system, it calms the body. So how you think of this, you can think of it as like how like how they have the paramedics, they're always rushing. So think para opposite of what you would think. So like think para opposite. Like instead of thinking of parasympathetic, think of para opposite. Para opposite would be easy for you to remember because that para opposite of them rushing, they're calm, slow, move, everything like that. Sympathetic, aroused, they're always up, Oh, geez. I'm not even take that long way. But sympathetic system, it's the fight or flight response arousing the body. Except the stomach, and the stomach calms during the parasympathetic and the bladder relaxes. The somatic nervous system is two parts. Sensory nervous system, afferent neurons, it is our senses. So that's the somatic nervous system. The sensory nervous system, afferent neurons, and our senses. The motor nervous system is the efferent neurons and muscles or glands. The somatic nervous system. Okay, I'm gonna read this one more time. I'm so sorry. The somatic nervous system is the sensory nervous system, afferent neurons, and our senses. So you can think of sensory senses, okay? And then motor nervous systems is the efferent neurons, muscles, or gland. So motor, you could think of like, no, I don't want to say that. Cause like, okay, y'all please don't take my examples too seriously, because this is how I would remember it, but not everybody remembers how I remember. But I'm gonna give my examples. You can take it, but don't soak it in all the way unless you're comfortable with it. So I would do motor nervous systems as muscle or glands. Motorcyclists, you can think of like when you watching movies, motorcyclists, they be like the ones with like the big muscles and stuff. So like you can think of motorcyclists, big muscles, or just muscles and glands. Once you know muscles, usually I like to remember glands. But like on tests and stuff, they might try to trick you. They might say like muscles and nerves or muscles and neurons. It's muscles and glands. Okay. Three types of neurons. There are the sensory afferent neurons. It deals with our sense. That should be pretty easy. Sensory sense. Sensory sense. Sensory sense. Sensory sense. That's touch. Sense. Sensory sense. And then we have interneurons communicate within the brain and spinal cord. So that would like correspond with the central nervous system, interneurons, and then the motor neurons deals with movement. Um, yeah. Motor neurons, again, you think of motorcyclists, they drive really fast. So no, don't think of that. That's a horrible example. That is a horrible example. But motor neurons deals with movement. Just remember that. Okay, just remember that. This is my last page. I have like 3 other pages, but see, we're not going into that because I like accidentally got those notes, so I don't want to explain anything wrong. Even though I wasn't in class with this stuff, like this is stuff I remember from anatomy and physiology, so I like this stuff like this. Anywho's, before we go any further, I have to discuss with you the parts of the neuron. If you are going to take the AP psychology test, the parts of the neuron will be in that test. Parts of the neuron. We're gonna give examples. I feel like these examples are really good. Okay, so like I said, you don't have to take these examples, but if you want to take these examples, you can absolutely take them. Okay, so we have the axon terminals. Okay, I'm gonna list them, and right now I'm gonna tell you how to remember them. Then later I'm gonna tell you how to remember them and how to remember what they do. So we have the axon terminals. That's right there. Those are the little branchy, sticky thingies at the end. Then we have the node of Ranvier. So node, I would think of road. Node. So those little spots in between. I don't think you guys can see them, but those little spots in between those big old gulps will be the road. Node of Ranvier. Road of Ranvier. Node of Ranvier. Trust me, they're not gonna have road of Ranvier, so you'll be fine. You'll be like, oh, road of Ranvier. Oh, I see nodes, I'm good with that. So it's gonna be easy. Then you have the myelin sheath. I would think of the sheath as like a sheet. It is protecting a little cell-like structure on top of the sheath. Oh, y'all see that's it's like the little. So the sheath is right here. It's protecting the that little cell-like structure right there that we're gonna go into in a minute. So that is the sheath. It is protecting the road. It's covering the road right now, and it's also protecting that little cell-like thing right now. Next we have the Schwann cell. Like I said, cell. So that thing is a cell that it is protecting. It's called a Schwann cell. So the myelin sheath is protecting the Schwann cell. That is the node of Ranvier. And then we have the axon terminals right there. Then we have the axon. The axon is actually right here. My little breakage right there is the axon. Right there, that's the axon. And then we have the dendrites. The dendrites look like little branches at the top. So dendrites, I don't really know how else to explain that, but I'll be able to give like a good explanation when we do like the definition and stuff. And then we have the soma. So the soma is the little thing inside of the nucleus. I'm gonna just go ahead and describe the nucleus right now. The nucleus is, I think you can only see, it's a little tiny dot inside of the nucleus that is the soma. And I'm gonna, that whole thing is called a neuron. So now I'm gonna go into like the definitions and stuff. The nucleus, which is the thing that we just saw, it is a oval-shaped membrane-bound structure found in the soma. So, like I said, it is on top of the soma. It's a little dot on top of the soma. So, no, it's a little. The nucleus in the soma. Okay, my bad. I explained it wrong. Okay, so the nucleus is the little dot on the inside, the little black dot on the inside. The soma is the whole little round thing that you're seeing right there. And then we have the what is it? Okay. So and then we have the cell body, which is the soma. It is the life support center. It is the life support center. It is protecting the the soma. It's protecting the nucleus. So the soma surrounds the nucleus. The nucleus is the little dot on the inside. So the soma is the life support center. That's the center life support of life. Right? Get it right? Life support center is the center of life support. Yeah. And then we have the dendrites, which are branch-like. So you can think of these as little branches, the dendrites. I don't really know how to like put that for you to remember, but I mean it's the only thing that like I can't really give you like that. But dendrites are branches like those kind of look like little branches too, but do not get them confused. You will know the difference. Like you can see the axon terminals at the end of the I can't remember what that's called. You can see the axon terminals right there by the myelin sheath. The dendrites literally look like tall going up branches. And then we have axon. It passes messages from the dendrite to the axon terminal. It's the long part of the neuron. So yeah. So the axon receives messages from the dendrite because you know the dendrite receives messages. When the dendrite receives messages, it sends messages out from the dendrite to the axon terminal. Yeah. And then we have the axon terminals, which are the buttons. Like I said, those look like little buttons to the end. Those, when the axon receives the messages from the dendrites, then it sends it through. It gets to the axon terminals. The axon terminals pass it on to another axon. Not to another axon, to another neuron. To another neuron. The myelin sheath is insulation for axon. It increases velocity of message. In simple terms, it increases the speed. So it helps, the myelin sheath helps the message to get there faster. Deterioration of the myelin sheath decreases the speed, obviously, because the myelin sheath is helping the axon to get there faster. Nodes of Ranvier spaces between myelin. So, like I said, that's the little road. The myelin covers the road. The myelin is what helps speed it up It might take a little break in between the node, and then goes on to another myelin and speeds up again. Then we have the Schwann cell, which I said is on top of the myelin sheet. Um, it produces myelin, so in a way, the myelin protects the Schwann cell, and the Schwann cell in return makes sure that it doesn't die out. But in case that the myelin sheet does deteriorate, the speed of the message will be slowed down. Glial cells support, nourish, and protect neurons. So that wasn't on there. It wasn't on the oh, so sorry. It wasn't on the little thing that y'all had, but it supports, nourish, and protect neurons. That whole thing with the axon terminals, the nodes of Ranvier, Schwann cell, the myelin sheet, dendrites, axon, soma, nucleus, axon terminals, all of that was the neuron. So the glial cell protects that whole system right there. Um, Resting potential is when you wait for the potential to do an action, excavator, waiting but still prepared for pitcher to throw ball. Outside the axon is positive ions, and inside of the axon is negative ions. Um, so we talked about positive, negative, and stuff in chemistry. Action potential is firing a neural impulse like the wave in a football game. So let's say boom, boom, yeah. So it's the fire. Um, it's all or nothing. Depolarization and sodium ions flow in versus repolarization, potassium ions flow out. So sodium flows in during depolarization, potassium ions flow out. So let's say you want more salt on your fries. So sodium, you want more. So you bring it in, bring it off the table, heat in. Repolarization, potassium, you could think of that as like, what is easier? I don't take all my stuff seriously, but as possum, you want the possum to get out of your house. It flows out. Potassium flows out. Sodium, you want it, pull it in. Refractory period is the night before a neuron can fire again. So it has to rest before it can fire again. The synapse is the junction or gap between the sending neuron and the receiving neuron. So you know how I told you the axon terminal shoots that message out? That space between where that axon is getting shot out of to where it now reaches the next axon, well, the next neuron is the synapse. So that's a break in between where the message is just floating and trying to reach the other end. That was by Sir Charles Sherrington, Nobel Prize. So that was it. That was actually shorter than the video I originally made. The original video was like 40 minutes. So I think I did good, and I feel like I explained everything very well. So yeah, I don't know why that video was so long. But I guess sometimes I like do things, sometimes I don't know. But so today we went over the chromosome, DNA, genes, recessive gene, dominant gene, genotype, phenotype, genome, hereditability, dizygotic, monozygotic. We went over molecular genetics, molecular behavior genetics, epigenetics, evolutionary psychology, the endocrine system with the pituitary gland and the hormones. Remember, hormones are sent into the bloodstream. Central nervous system, remember that is only the brain and the spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system is the rest of the body. Autonomic nervous system is two parts. Sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. Somatic nervous system is two parts. Sensory nervous system, motor nervous system. That is part of the peripheral nervous system going into the autonomic and the somatic. Three types of neurons: sensory, afferent neurons, interneurons, motor neurons. Then we have the nucleus, cell body, which is the soma, dendrite, axon, axon terminals, myelin sheath, nodes of Ranvier or roads of Ranvier, Schwann cell, glial cells, resting potential, action potential, and synapse. So that is what we went over. Um, Next video, I'm going to start on algebra 2. So I feel like I myself is very good in algebra 2, so it might get a little bit more better information. But yeah, that is it.